This movie is what I wanted the wild robot to be.
Hi, I'm Luke.
And I'm Becca, and we're talking about movies like we know stuff.
Hey everyone, we just watched Flow, the newest Oscar winner for Best Animated Feature, and I have so many thoughts.
So many.
Borderline traumatizing experience, but also very beautiful.
Yeah, we should definitely mention though that it's by a couple of a lot of indie animation studios, but they were out of Latvia, so this is not a Hollywood blockbuster by any means, which is kind of cool. So
There were also 50 title cards.
there were a lot of title cards.
A comical amount of title cards.
every animation studio wanted their title card, which is understandable.
According to Google, and my own experience of actually watching the film, this is set in a post-apocalyptic time where flooding has destroyed the Earth to the point that humans are wiped out. And there's just some remaining animals that have somehow managed to escape the waters. So the core of the story is about a cat and other animals it finds along the way that help each other to survive. Animals that I'm sure would not normally be working together in nature, but I don't want to spoil the point.
Of course, yeah. And they go through different strifes and trials, and there's friendships that are tested, and
Trauma
and relationships that are tested, and social dynamics and hierarchies and all sorts of different things that go along with it. So overall though, I thought the movie was very good. I would say you could definitely tell it's a indie animation studio, but it still doesn't mean that it's not beautiful. The art and the animation and the audio were very, very good.
I thought the lighting was fantastic.
Yeah.
The lighting, I loved it.
Yeah, it was very pretty for sure.
I mean, do I know anything about lighting and animation? Absolutely not. But I loved it. I felt like they captured the sun very well. It felt photorealistic in terms of how they lit the scenes.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job anthropomorphizing the animals, because there's no single line of dialogue in this. It's all animal noises and sound effects. But they did a really good job adding human-like traits and human-like movement to the art style of the movements of the cat and the dog and all the other animals and stuff like that. It shows their emotions a little bit better,
They were able to emote without dialogue.
Exactly.
So it was like WALL-E, but less preachy.
Yeah. So they weren't tied exclusively to only things a cat could do, only things a dog could do, only things whatever the animal is could do. They gave them a little bit more expressions that allowed them to empathize and emote in the ways that they needed them to. So
I will say you can definitely tell this is not an American film.
Why is
You
that?
can tell it's not an American film.
Tell me how.
Because especially American animation generally doesn't sit with uncomfortable things so long. It doesn't really live in the bittersweet. It doesn't live in the gray. That, you think of the two juggernaut studios would be Walt Disney Animation Studios for the US and Studio Ghibli for Japan. And think how different those movies are. Where Studio Ghibli movies know how to sit in the quiet moments, in the sadness, and a lot of American films, especially animation, I think they don't know how to sit in those moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're played off with either a quick resolution or the comedic relief comes in and lightens the mood a little bit.
Exactly. That I feel as Americans, we're uncomfortable with sadness.
Yeah. It's definitely
we don't like to marinate in that.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a product of American animation for sure. So yeah, that's a fair point. I didn't think about that.
And I was like, oh, this is like a Studio Ghibli film.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, life really sucks, but there's also beauty in the perseverance, despite that.
Yeah.
But again, I guess Pixar gets closer to that than other American films, but they still like to throw little bows on the end that you're not going to see in other non-American animated films.
Right. Yeah. That's completely fair. Yeah. So, overall story and plot, what did you think of it? And also, what did you think the moral or morals of the story was?
Oh, I feel like I'm being interviewed.
Well, it's a little bit, I'm just prompting the questions.
That's
so
true.
That you can answer.
So, what did I think of the overall story?
What did you think of the overall story and plot? And did you think there were any morals or lessons to be learned from it? Because I have some thoughts on it, but I'd be curious what yours are.
So, hot take.
Okay.
I feel like in some ways this movie is what I wanted the wild robot to be.
Okay.
I wanted the wild robot to be this really impactful story about the beauty of love in really terrible and trying circumstances. I wanted that like little dialogue, and I really think like the point of this movie, and I'm gonna sound so corny, but the point of this movie is like love.
Yeah, no, that's a fair lesson. Yeah. So if I can go off of that a little bit and maybe expand a little bit deeper, I would say that the story was interesting, a little ambiguous, well, very ambiguous, honestly. But the lessons that I kind of got out of it were that life is full of highs and lows, and it's about working through those, adapting to those, and creating friendships along the way so that those friends can lift you through the low parts and celebrate with you in the high parts. That's what I thought the lesson
Like
was.
life is about community.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, who you surround yourself with.
Or just surrounding yourself with people at all, you know, which again, I feel like that was a good choice to make the main character a cat. You know, cats aren't communal creatures,
Generally, yeah,
you know?
Yeah, which emphasizes that point a little bit more for sure. So yeah, to me it was about building up a community to help you through the lows and celebrating with you in the highs, and also that life can be very unpredictable, full of highs and lows, and it's okay, and you kind of need a support structure to get through those parts of your life.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I thought that was a pretty cool lesson, and I thought it was
Yeah.
pretty prevalent in that one.
No, I think it just about covers it.
Yeah.
Again, if we're going to like look at this and put it with like human characters instead, that obviously like you could easily say the animals were a metaphor for people of like different backgrounds and like races and walks of life and binding together to survive.
Yeah, right.
Is that at the end of the day we really aren't so different.
Right. Yeah.
We all need food, we need water, we need safety, we need love, we need stability,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is all these like creatures we're looking for. Because the whole time, you know, I was thinking, I'm like, what are they, you know, they can't really, right, they can only communicate so much. Again, I don't know how much animals can communicate with each other, but I'm thinking, you know, what are they looking for? I guess just to get by.
Yeah, just to survive.
Again, there was no dialogue,
Right.
but, you know, about let's find the promised land. I hear of high ground, I hear of food. They're just trying not to drown.
Right.
For 90 minutes.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, which, holy cow, it's a lot of almost drowning.
I mean, I yelled a lot at the screen.
You did.
It was just, now that I've seen it, I feel like I can watch it again, but it was a very hard first watch for me.
Yeah, you definitely don't like when animals face any sort of strife.
Yes, like animals in distress.
And there's a lot of animal distress in this movie.
Correct.
It's pretty much the foundation of the conflict.
Okay, so not to be rambling and get off topic, because I know that we're both ramblers. But probably like a couple weeks ago, I read an article about this movie that they didn't give spoilers, but the author said, this movie traumatized my children. Like, this movie was beautiful, and it's fine, but it traumatized my children. And I should have known based on that article that I would also have difficulty because I have a childlike love of animals, and I am a gasper, and I am easily frightened for the safety of fictional animals in movies.
Yeah.
So I mean, I should have known, but still, at one point, what did I shout? What did I, like, we're sitting here, what did I shout at the screen?
I don't remember. You shouted a lot.
I think didn't I say I hate this movie at some point? I think I said I hate this movie.
Yeah, I think I asked you because I wasn't sure if you were serious or not. I was like, do you want to stop?
And I'm like, yes.
But
For the channel.
But no.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's go through some characters because I have some thoughts on the characters as well. So the first and main character is a black cat who's very independent. He doesn't have anyone around him. You never see another cat in the entirety of the movie. And so from my perspective, the cat grows through building relationships, like I said, in kind of like the overall story of this movie is that, you know, you have to grow and surround yourself with people who will help you and be there for you in the highs and lows. And so that's what I thought about the cat. What did you think about the cat?
Yeah, again, I thought the cat was a brilliant choice for a main character.
Yeah.
And ironic that an animal that's not known for being friendly, not being communal, ends up being the main character that ends up bringing all these animals together in a very roundabout way.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say like all the other animal characters as a whole, I don't even know if they were like fleshed out enough. I don't have a lot of commentary on the other animals, except for the bird.
Interesting. Okay. I have commentary on most of them, I think.
Yeah, for me, I feel like most of the movie for me was about like the cat and the bird.
That's fair. They were some prominent characters.
Because the other animals, they kind of just fell into it. I suppose except for the dog. The dog had a little more purpose in the story.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, the bird was the most impactful character because for some reason, and was that the same bird that also like not only stood up to to its flock, but
To the alpha of the flock, yeah.
the alpha of the flock. But didn't this bird also at some point save that cat from drowning, like pick him up in the water and drop him in the boat?
No, I don't know which one that one was. I would have to go back and watch that again. I thought it was the alpha that picked him up, or the cat up, and
Yeah.
then dropped him off.
like, why
But
would
I think it was the one that stayed with him that defended. Well, it is the one that defended him from the alpha in the group.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to go back.
We'd have
Because
to go back
again,
and
they all
verify,
animated
yeah.
all of the birds so
The,
similarly.
yeah,
They're-
the birds were very similar.
they
It's
didn't
hard
have
to
like
tell them
distinct
apart.
characteristics.
Yeah, the alpha you could tell because he had a couple extra like peacock feathers up by his head, but other than that, you couldn't distinguish between the two of them. They were kind of the same.
Well, for sure, the bird that like defended the cat.
Yeah, right.
You know, which again, horrible scene. That's in my notes. Horrible scene.
Yeah, right.
You know, which again, I don't know anything about animal behavior, but
I don't think birds do that.
I hope they don't. Like
think
they
they do.
broke his kneecaps basically. Like that was like the
Basically.
mob.
Yeah. Well, it.
I mean, watching this, I was
think-
like, wow, Peaky Blinders is easier to watch than this movie.
I think again, birds are capable of breaking each other's bones, but I don't think they do it in the way that they did it in the movie, which is pin him down and step on his wing. You know, I don't think that's how the birds do it. I think it's just through like combat, through like scratching each other and pecking at each other and stuff like that. So I don't think they do it quite the loan shark style that was displayed in this movie.
No. I mean, can I just say that, you know, our child is almost 6 months old, and I'm not going to show him this movie until he's
probably a
like
good idea.
18.
Yeah. Well, 18 might be a little late.
I just, you know, this movie is not for children.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, small children for sure.
It's not.
Yeah.
Or sensitive children, or sensitive women in their 30s.
Yes. Present company included.
It's, you know what? It's beautiful, but
Yeah.
it's rough. Anyways,
Yeah.
tell me what you thought about the other animal
Yeah,
characters,
so
because again, they didn't impact me as much as a viewer.
So to me, they all had a theme of various levels of growth. So for me, the dog was about bridging like species or potentially like race, I guess. You know, so like his pack that he rolled with, he really enjoyed being with his pack. But whenever his pack was just like, well, we're all about us and only about us.
He did
and
like
he wanted to the Labrador wanted to stay and be with the cat because he just wanted to be friends with the cat. And anyway, it didn't matter what species the cat was.
Yes.
So that was his kind of growth and lesson. The capybara was lazy. Like that's just all he was. He was just lazy all the time. I don't know if he ever outgrew being lazy. I guess he did steer the boat towards the end. So I guess maybe that was kind of his growth is that he became less lazy. The lemur was obviously like greed and like a hoarder.
A hoarder.
You know? And so he learned to live with what he had rather than trying to collect and hoard as much as he possibly could. Throughout the entire movie, he's trying to collect glass, and every little piece of glass that he loses is like traumatizing to him or whatever. And then by the end, he's with other lemurs and he only has the broken mirror, but he's satisfied because the mirror is what he has and it's what he can enjoy. So then that was the lemur. And then the bird.
Yeah. Oh, which is another very nice metaphor. Is the mirror's broken at the end and he's still okay with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's okay with what he had.
You're okay with like the reality that like life isn't perfect.
Right, yeah. And then the bird was all about standing up for others when they need to, and then dealing with what's the word for it? Like dealing with like the regret, or not the regret, or like the
consequences.
The consequences of your actions, even if they might not necessarily be just. You know, the bird was clearly defending the cat from the alpha, and he gets his wing broken and exiled from his flock. And I mean, the way it was animated, it made me feel like the bird did kind of like hold the cat responsible a little bit for his broken wing and his exile from the flock a little bit. That's the way at least I read the bird's actions after that situation. The bird was just solely focused on getting to the large pillar at the end of the ocean or whatever it is.
Right.
And he didn't become friendly. He didn't soften up or anything like that. He was solely focused and driven to that goal. So it's dealing with that consequences of
doing the right thing.
Of doing the right thing and kind of holding the cat responsible for what had happened to him in his life. Was there any other characters on the boat I'm missing? I mean, the dog pack was on there for a little bit, but again, they just re-emphasized the fact that they only look out for themselves.
Yeah,
and
they're just like the dogs from Up.
Yeah.
Like there's not much to say about them. They're
Yeah,
dogs.
well, again, yeah, the dogs is very clearly a representation of like trans speciesism and I guess potentially trans, like racism essentially. So these dog packs just run around and only look out for themselves or other dogs, and everybody else is like not not necessary to their attention and or consideration.
Yeah, they don't even really look out for each other though.
Yeah, they're pretty every man for themselves. A little bit, yeah.
Which again, you think about like actual dogs.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have the capacity to think to share. They see food and they just eat it as fast as they can until they stop or they get full.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, again, none of these felt like they were trying to like force morals onto these animals and force like modern day philosophical
Like
ideas and issues onto these animals.
And
it's just how it kind of played out and what I thought the symbolism was for each of the animals.
yeah, and I appreciate that in a lot of ways the movie felt realistic. Like it was showing like actual, like, again, I don't know if like a bird would actually defend a cat, right? But let's say for a lot of the actions, I felt like I could believe that these animals existed, that the point of the movie wasn't all animals are pure and all humans are bad,
Right.
and all of this like happened to the world because humans are bad and all the pure animals, they always band together, they always share their food, they always do the right thing. Like, no, they don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
again, that's what makes like the main character so compelling, is you see them do the right thing despite the fact that they are living in an environment where they really should only be focused on themselves.
Right. Exactly.
Because I think that was a concern I had, as I thought, oh, how preachy is this going to be? How like anti-human is this going to be? Like how
Yeah.
crappy am I going to feel about my species
Right.
by the end? And that's really not the point of it.
No, that's not the point of this at all. But I will agree with the analysis that I think the bird went to heaven when he got to the top of the pillar.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, I would agree, because nothing happened in the movie to show that the bird was in distress or he was really suffering, or even when he was flying for that, the climax of that scene, you could tell, like you said, the wing wasn't fully healed, but it wasn't this distress, this storm he was struggling in. He really just did like ascend to a higher plane of existence,
Right. Yeah.
and then left.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's how I interpret it. What do you think about the music?
I thought the music was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, this wasn't the kind of movie that's going to give you hooks. It's not that kind of
No.
film.
It's definitely a soundtracky music score. It's not pop songs or...
Or, I mean, even like soundtracks can have good hooks.
Oh,
And there was
sure.
like nothing in the soundtrack that I was caught to that I'm like, oh, here's the hopeful anthem. Here's the
Yeah.
distress.
Yeah, I don't think like the cat had a theme and the dog had a theme and, when they played together or
Who's
whatever.
the composer?
I don't know. I didn't look it up.
Oh, composed by the director.
The music to me was very cinematic, very symphonic in nature. There was a lot of sweeping winds and sweeping strings, not a lot of horns in it. Very little percussion, and what percussion there was in it, it was very synthetic. There were also a couple of synthetic electronic tracks that were more symphonic in nature, so they weren't umcha, but they were much more like driven by a 4 on the floor beat, even though it was like soft and muted, and then there was some like sweeping synths on top of it that kind of gave it a flowy feeling to it. There was also a lot of really good like ominous type tracks that let you know that danger was nearby or everything wasn't necessarily all kosher.
The cat's
when you
drowning
thought it
again.
was. Yeah, exactly. Built good tension when it needed to and really opened up and provided wonder and whimsy when the scenes panned out and showed the landscape and where the cat was or the animals were at that point in time. So really, really good score. Definitely could see myself putting a couple of the tracks into our movie score
Playlist, yeah.
that we have on Spotify.
So I'm usually so tuned into the music for a movie. It's usually what I notice first. But I do feel like I was so drawn into the story and mostly the peril of the characters that the music really did fade to the background for me. It's not that I didn't notice it was there, because most movies without dialogue rely on the score.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are ones that don't, but let's say the majority of them do,
Sure.
It's like back to like silent films where, music was, like the piano player was a huge role in
Right.
Communicating to the audience if there was tension or romance or something silly happening.
Right.
So, but I really do feel like I was so just drawn in by what was happening that I just, not that it became background noise, but it wasn't highlighted for me.
Okay.
Which I think that's an unusual experience for me.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, normally you pick up on music and themes and stuff like that.
Usually like I'm walking away, again, adding something to
Talking
my playlist.
about the score.
And I'm not
yeah.
saying that it wasn't great, but I think that speaks to just how compelling the plot was.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a completely fair analysis.
So it's like a backhanded compliment.
Well, yeah.
To the score.
Again, none of the music is going to blow your socks off. It's not going to be the next like test flight or whatever, name your epic song.
Yeah.
It's not going to be one of those.
Name your favorite
but
animated
It
score.
definitely fit the theme of the animation, and it still, to me, was musically very interesting. What about the visuals and or special effects? I guess the whole thing was animated, so the whole thing was technically a special effect. But what did you think of the visuals?
I mean, I feel like we've already spoken to it.
Yeah.
The animation's gorgeous. The water, beautifully animated. Agreed. Lighting was great. I wasn't sure I was gonna like how the characters were animated because they look kind of sketchy, kind of rough.
Yeah.
I got over that so quickly.
Yeah, you do. You're much like a Puss in Boots or maybe like the Miles Morales Spider-Mans. You kind of get over that style pretty quickly, and by get over it, I mean your brain kind of accepts it as this is what it is, and you don't really notice it anymore.
Yeah, like there was nothing in like the still images for this movie that made me think, wow, that looks gorgeous. I thought, oh, that looks like an animated movie.
Yeah, my gauge usually is like, would I make this scene my desktop background at any point in time, or would I make this movie at any frame my desktop background? And I would say there's probably like 2 or 3 instances maybe where that occurred, but for the most part, it was good animation, good art style, but not necessarily my thing, is what I would say.
But it was a nice break.
It was. It's different. It's very different.
You know, everything has that like clean Pixar look, which was great in the early 2000s, and now it's really uninspired.
Yeah.
So I, you know, especially as somebody who doesn't want everything to look like
Pixar or Disney.
Yeah, like Frozen forever. I really appreciate a different flair, even if it makes the characters look like a little, like actually literally rough around the edges.
Yeah. Again, I like the style. I really do. I'm not knocking it or saying that the Disney Pixar animation style is superior or anything like that. It's very stylistic is all I'm saying. So it can be polarizing if you do or do not like that kind of style.
Like I could see somebody who sees animation as a genre, not as a medium, just being completely put off by it.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, eh.
The other thing that's interesting, no, that's a very good point.
You know, this is strange. There's no dialogue. I'm out.
Yeah, and I would say the other thing that I noticed as well is that this movie was not, typically with this animation style, usually they lower the frame rate so it looks more like you're flipping through like a sketchbook or a comic book to see the animation. This one, I think, stuck at 60 frames per second for the entirety of the movie. So it didn't give me like a disassociation when it like switched between frame likes. Like I can't remember what other movie we watched recently that did that. There's something that we watched recently that it was like 60 frames and then at some point, oh, Ride the Rohirrim.
Yeah.
Ride the Rohirrim switched frame rates mid-movie multiple times, and it
was distracting.
It was very distracting.
I didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah, this one stayed 60 frames per second the whole way through. Everything is very flat shaded. I will say, I'm sorry, not flat shaded. They're cell shaded. So you still get the highlights and lowlights of shadows and lights, but they're very like blocky cells that are colored. There were a couple points where I appreciate the attempt to get as close to realistic as possible, where the cat actually looked white because he was in such a bright light that the cat actually appeared white for a hot minute until he stepped into the shadow again, and then he faded to black again. And so I appreciate them trying to stick to what would probably the cat would actually look like in that lighting in that scenario.
And I think that's why I keep going back to saying like the lighting stuck out to me the most, where I was like, oh, the lighting on the water, the lighting through the trees, the shadows of the cat realistically falling where they were supposed to fall.
Yeah, right.
You know, that I didn't feel like I was like watching a painting. I didn't feel like I was watching, you know, Wish, which also went back to the cell shading.
Yes.
But there was just too much visual dissonance in the movie for it to appear good.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
That's the best word.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that movie.
We won't talk about that one.
We don't talk about that one. You know, I want to talk about the ending. I want to talk about what you think it is, because I was scrolling on Reddit to read
cheating.
Other people's interpretations.
Come to your own interpretation.
I am not going to claim this one, but I'm going to say this is my favorite one.
All right.
One of the last frames of the movie, or one of the last scenes, is the cat thinks that he's hearing like a rush of water. He's having a panic attack, essentially. He's like starts to run because he's expecting another like tidal wave to come. And he ends up coming upon essentially like a beached whale, which I think is supposed to be the same whale that saved him earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
And the whale is breathing out his last breath because with all of the water suddenly receding, while all like the land animals are fine, now the fish are left to perish. And the cat is joined by all of his friends while they just kind of like solemnly like stand together, like nuzzle together while this whale takes its last breath. And I took that to mean that my favorite interpretation that I read is that, well, one scenario might be good for somebody else, you know, it might mean the death of another. Is that, you know, harmony in life doesn't mean that everybody gets what they want. It's that there's like a circle of life, and
Right.
essentially there has to be some sacrifice somewhere. And then, I guess like the hopeful note you could leave on is that these animals perhaps are hoping for a balanced world again, where there can be water and land in more equal proportion, that there doesn't have to be the decimation of one species for the survival of another, which is what this movie left on, is that we can cheer for the characters we've grown to know and love, but because the reality that they're living in the movie still ends in death.
Yeah. That's good, man. I like that one. That's
And
a
then-
good interpretation.
The post-credit scene where you see the whale rising
Out of the water.
I'm not going to talk about the sad interpretations I read because I don't like those. But we're not going to read those.
Okay.
I'm not going to share those with the internet. But my favorite one was a symbolism of the whale ascending to its own version of heaven for his own like altruism and willingness to help the cat.
Yeah.
Similar to the bird.
Okay.
Other, people on the internet noted like the same music and the lighting.
Yeah. I didn't know
So-
like the magic swirly trippiness lighting though. That's the thing that makes me maybe say that might not be necessarily. I like that interpretation. I really do.
Yeah, I'm good.
Like,
You know
I
what?
would be okay if that was actually the official one.
What do you think the ending meant?
I think the ending meant that yes, there is sacrifice at the end of when things change. And so to me, the whale that helped out the cat did pass away. The post-credit scene saying that there are still more of his species that are living on.
That the water
in
hasn't
world.
gone-
The water hasn't gone
yeah.
to zero, so that none of them can live anymore. It's that they still exist out
Oh,
there.
another like impactful comment I saw where somebody had said it was interesting because the water is really viewed as pretty much like the villain of the story. But if the story had been told from the perspective of a fish
Yeah.
or the whale, then they would have been perfectly fine fearing for the imbalance to happen again.
Right, yeah.
But it just depends, the victor writes the history books.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So depending on like what perspective you're writing from, like either this was like a time of prosperity or a time of terror.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it.
So it's a worth watching, definitely.
Yeah.
It is. I still think it's a hard watch, especially for people that don't know how it ends and aren't prepared. I feel like I could watch it again because I'm not going to be sitting in just like abject horror,
'Cause you know
wondering
what happens
if
now,
I'm
yeah.
gonna watch a cute little like black cat just plummet to its death.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, really, just really different and really refreshing after a year of a lot of animated movies, really a couple of years of a lot of animated movies that are just playing on our nostalgia and our favorite franchises, and those are fun too. Like those
Yeah.
have their place.
Yeah.
But again, I firmly believe that animation is a medium and not a genre. So to see animation being used in something that I would consider groundbreaking and deeply impactful to the point that, I cry. I mean, I cried during the middle of this movie. I
did.
shouted at the screen. I was completely invested.
You were invested for sure. Yeah.
So even though it's probably not going to make my top 10 favorite animated movies, because I'm probably not going to go back to it a lot, like it made me feel something.
Yeah.
And, that's an experience worth having.
Sure.
We should watch movies not just for entertainment, but we should watch movies to learn something.
Yeah. That's good that you said that because my answer is that yes, I think you should watch it. However, the caveats are small children probably won't like it because it'll either be too boring or too traumatizing for them.
Scary.
I will also say that if you do not like slower paced films, this is not for you either. Like if you need like Jason Bourne or John Wick action all the time, this is like not for you.
No,
at
if you like
all. It's-
dialogue, this is not
yeah,
for
if
you.
you like dialogue, this is not for you
This
either.
book has no pictures.
Yeah, but effectively that. Yeah. So again, I appreciate that you said that it is a beautiful piece of art and it's definitely worth the watch. I would agree though that it probably wouldn't make my top 10 animations, but still a fantastic film. And I really like that we watched it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, well deserving of the Oscar,
Yeah.
for sure. Thanks, Latvia, for the,
Yes. Much appreciated.
for the beauty and for the post-traumatic stress disorder I'm gonna have. Hey everyone, if you stayed till the end, thanks for listening. We would love if you would like, comment, subscribe, and we'd love to hear in the comments if you saw the Oscar winner this year. Do you think any other animated films got robbed? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you and good night.